China has warned against trade deals that hurt what it calls third parties, a pointed message just hours after the U.S. sealed an agreement with Vietnam.
中方的立场是一贯的，我们乐见各方通过平等磋商解决与美方经贸分歧，但坚决反对任何一方以牺牲中方利益为手段达成交易。如果出现这样情况，中方将坚决予以反制，维护自身正当权益。
The deal slashes tariffs on Vietnamese exports to the U.S. to 20%. Well, that's down from the 46% Washington had originally threatened. But it also includes a steeper 40% levy targeting goods originating elsewhere but shipped through Vietnam to the United States, an indirect hit at Chinese products. Vietnam's foreign ministry says negotiators are now working with the U.S. to finalize terms. It hailed the deal as a breakthrough that will boost exports and expand harmonious and sustainable trade. This marks the first full trade pact between Washington and an Asian country, and coming less than a week before a deadline on the 9th of July. That is when steeper tariffs take effect for countries that have failed to get their deals. Washington has said trade talks with India look promising, but also warning it might not reach a deal with Japan in time. And for more, Jagruti Dave joins us live from Washington. Jagruti, apart from that 40% and 20% baseline tariffs, not much in terms of detail on this deal between Washington and Hanoi. How does it benefit at this point both countries, this particular deal?
Well, Wei Su, there are lots of question marks still hanging over the finer details of this deal. As you mentioned, you've got that 20% tariff of Vietnamese products entering the US that's down from that original 46%. But a lot of businesses are still worried about what this 20% tariff could mean for their products and for their access, for the access into the American market. Now, Donald Trump is presenting this deal as beneficial for the United States, opening up the Vietnamese market to American products. But you've got shoemakers, for example, a lot of whom do business and manufacture in Vietnam, concerned about the fact that the tariffs will be paid by US importers, which would then filter down to consumers, which would mean higher prices for consumers on products like shoes that have been made in Vietnam. The other thing that we don't really know is what kinds of goods are going to be exactly impacted by that slightly higher tariff. So goods that are coming through Vietnam into the United States that originate from another country could be hit by 40% tariffs. Now, this is what widely seen as an attempt to target Chinese products coming in through Vietnam, an issue called transshipment. Now, it's not clear whether this is all goods originating from another country coming in through Vietnam, or whether it's goods with parts that over a certain threshold that are made in another country that come through Vietnam. So that is unclear of the nature of the goods that are going to be hit by that higher tariff. As I say, Donald Trump says it's going to open up the US market to the Vietnamese market to US products. But it's also not known exactly how this deal is going to impact Vietnam's relation with its largest trading partner, China. Clearly, a lot of pressure here being put on Vietnam.
Jagruti, a lot of lack of clarity, but even so, perhaps some countries might be envious that Vietnam has reached a deal at all. Others might be looking like they might be running out of time and running out of luck. What's the situation like for these many other key trading partners with Washington?
Yes, very much so. Those so-called reciprocal trade tariffs that Donald Trump slapped on a lot of countries look very, very high. So the attempt to sign any kind of deal with Washington does look like it could at least has some benefits beyond these particular set of rules that Donald Trump has outlined, which and that deadline is July the 9th. There are concerns by some countries like Japan that a deal will not be reached by that point, you've heard from from the leader of South Korea, who is also saying that a deal may not be done by the July 9th deadline. It shows that the US, as I say, is putting serious pressure on countries in Asia, asking them to really consider how they're balancing their trading relationship between the US and China. So you've got Japan, for example, where there's a lot of stumbling blocks on issues like the imports of cars and rice. But sources telling Indian media suggesting that a partial deal between New Delhi and Washington could be reached in the next couple of days. But a sticking point there is the US's request for access to India's agriculture and dairy industry. So still lots of uncertainties and questions about even whether that July 9th deadline is a hard and fast deadline, with the White House suggesting that it could potentially be extended.
Thanks. Jagruti Dave bringing us up to date on any deals or truces reached between Washington and its many trading partners.